I'm here with.
PK,
And what does Mr. PK do?
as little as possible.
And what have you learned from doing as little as possible?
Well, it's exceptionally calming and satisfying.
Right now, with all that you've done, what problems are you actively solving?
Well, the problem that I'm actively solving is keeping myself happy. That's the biggest problem, keeping myself happy and keeping myself healthy. These are the two biggest problems one should solve for themselves. A lot of the problems get solved by themselves.
And what about all the ancillary ones with, where you're a part of all these advisory boards, funding commissions, or, even just in the education space as well? There's so many things that you do. So,
Well, I do them all for fun. Be it the assembly, that's where I found you first, is something which I wanted to do. Usually the problem is new things come too late to them, in the sense that they don't get access to them quickly enough. So we started the assembly just to make a place where people could come and play with newer technologies like 3D printing or, hardware and stuff like that, or build drones. And they could come to that quickly enough without any risk of spending money, or actually creating a place where they could come and tinker, play with, and meet like-minded people. So meet people who would be doing something similar or would want to do something similar, and then the wisdom of the crowds takes over, where they end up building things which are bigger than themselves. And this is what, in the 10 years of assembly that we learned, was creating this community of great people who learned how to build things with their own hands.
when it comes to building things and building businesses, obviously we talked about two particular ways. You build products, you build services. What's your take on service-based businesses in 2025 with the tools we have available to us?
Listen, there's nothing great about product business versus services business. They're just different kinds of businesses. Unfortunately, today, youngsters see and hear a lot more about startups and startup kind of businesses, which tend to work mostly with the kind of funding mechanisms and stuff that is in the ecosystem that's built around them, only when you're building products. Products of value, which will actually get milked over a period of time. So you build an asset, so you spend a lot of money building that asset. And then hopefully you reach what is called product market fit, so you can now scale it exponentially and make a lot of money. Now that model usually doesn't work with services. So doing services and doing them well, you can make a lot of money. But it's probably not fundable in the way product companies and startups get funded. So to look at it either from a lens of don't do product or don't do services is a bad idea. Do whatever you do it well, do it with your eyes open, and make sure what are the limits of that model. So don't expect an exponential return from a services company, okay? And for doing a product company, you need to spend a lot. You need to have a lot of liquidity to spend so that you can build something formidable. So that's an investment focused kind of a program. So whatever you're doing, make sure you know how you will make it happen.
Investment companies?
Yes, guilty as charged.
And when it comes to investing in companies, what red flags makes you want to take a couple of steps back in today's ecosystem?
A wider question than I would be able to give a very specific answer on. But, when you invest in very early stage companies like I do, the only thing that is tangible at that time is the founding team or the founders. So what is important for you to make sure that you keep an eye on is the quality and conviction of the founder. Okay, so if you see a red flag on that, like many times you'll see founders come in and say, hey, I have this cushy job, but I have this great idea. I want to build this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build this on the side. When I'm able to raise money is when I will leave my job and come here. Now, for me, that's a red flag. Like in the sense that if you believe so much and you have so much conviction in your idea, then take the risk of doing the idea. You want that idea or somebody like me to come in and fund you so that you can de-risk, you can give yourself a salary. So you're taking no risk. I'm taking all the risk. And that's a red flag for me.
Gotcha.
Correct? So those are the kind of flags which I would say.
Maybe if I can make it a little more specific, everyone's jumping onto the trend of providing AI functionalities at the moment. How do you decipher what's truly valuable and what's just a wrapper?
So listen, I do not expect most startups to start building LLMs of their own or formidable amount of technology or deep tech. I don't, especially in this part of the world, because we don't have an education system which is deep enough for having enough people who trained in AI or understood the tech insides of it to be able to do that. So majority of the stuff that you'd see today tends to be a wrapper or built on top of some platform. Now that's great. It's probably land grab. People have come forward and say, hey, my agent does this, your agent can do this. All this is great, but there'll be millions of companies doing millions of agents and stuff like that. Now, which settles in, how it settles in. And by the way, the actual architecture of how the world will look like with AI is still being drawn up. And it's being drawn up by people who are a few degrees above this layer of people. People who are building the platforms and the rails and stuff like that for it. And that's not ready yet. And most of the people who are working on AI or trying to build startups on it will probably go through multiple iterations because they'll get wiped out. Their platform will get wiped out because the platforms change below them, or things change the way people orchestrate that. With all that in mind, I think a value will only come at this point of time in people who are faster in looking at bringing a mashup of larger things which was not possible before, wider things together, based on specifically some very unique data sets. So people who have data sets of very specific things, then using the framework of LLMs and stuff below them, they can actually build a vertical opportunity which could be pretty impressive. So those kind of things do happen. I've seen some. I keep looking at them, but they are very few. The percentage-wise, AI is a land grab at this time. But at the end of the day, will you be able to make formidable amount of money for it and stuff is still the jury's out.
And given the case that a lot of people are able to build companies under the guise of, say, they're going to be building something innovative, there are a lot of people now trying their hand at it. People who aren't necessarily college educated fully, or people who haven't, been through the full spectrum of education from undergrad to postgrad, whatnot. You're finding a lot of people who are 16 and 17 now trying to tinker with these tools, putting things out on their own. That being said, how seriously would you consider a college dropout or a high school grad to work in any of the companies that you funded?
One of the companies that we funded was a 17-year-old kid. We funded this company. I was one of the first people to kind of angel invest in him first when the idea. Then we got our angel group to fund more. And that company is doing reasonably well. And that kid has been having a kind of a running argument with his parents because he wants to drop out of the computer science degree in the US that he got into. That is after he started his company. So 2 years after he started the company, he raised a lot of money. The company is doing well. He's now fighting a battle like, let me go. I don't want to finish my degree. I want to drop out so that I can build it. So that is real. So the answer obviously is yes.
You think we're getting into a generation where high school kids are automatically more employable now just because of the access that they have to the skills that they can learn that are no longer limited by collegiate education?
I don't agree with that because I don't think there is a trend that you're seeing in it. High school kids or people, college dropouts have been doing these kind of companies forever. Microsoft is a great example. So they've done it at that time. Bill Gates dumped Howard, to do this. So that's something which people who are convinced and who know what they're doing are there, and they've done it. And they'll continue doing it, I think, in every generation. So I don't think it's a trend and it's better. Your question, in my opinion, is divided in terms of what it's asking in the fact that you're talking about employability on one side and talking about people building stuff on the other side. So they are not the same people. So when you look at it from that aspect, people building things, in fact, I think younger people have a great advantage that they have less baggage. So that is the reason why they can probably think outside the box easier than people who have baggage. Baggage in the sense, more years means you have more things you feel convinced about to do or not to do and things like that. The younger you are, the less rules you follow or less rules you know. Like there could be probably a youngster who would feel that gravity doesn't exist or doesn't know about gravity and then build something which is anti-gravity because he just didn't take that baggage, hypothetically. So that's the way I see it.
So outside of, just building a business, the reason why I talk about employability is because would you agree to the fact that people tend to learn more from experience than just going to college and learning things in theory, as opposed to maybe if you're 17 or 18 and someone comes up to you and says that, hey, I'm really curious about learning this is my skill stack. I'm also quite confident on educating myself through the resources available right now. Therefore, putting a larger number of people at a level where they could be employed at the ages of 17 and 18 as opposed to maybe 10, 15 years ago. And that probably wouldn't have been the case, right? Because in the way that we're educated right now, the way we're forced to think about how prepared or ready we are, maybe this is just the way I was raised. Maybe my upbringing was along the same lines, right? Which was, don't think about working till you're like 21, 22, as opposed to now people saying that, yeah, you're good to go work at like 17, 18.
Human beings can multitask and they should. I started assembly because I wanted younger kids, interns, to come and learn. We still take interns. I still work with interns. In the last 10 years, we've probably worked with 100 interns for longish periods where we actually ended up building things together. And I believe in that. I've also learned not everybody is built for that. Not everybody can do an unstructured program. A lot of people are learners wherever they go. So I don't think learning is tied to having a job or doing things themselves. At the same time, everybody is not built to be a leader. Everybody is not built to be an entrepreneur. Everybody is not built to be a CEO or lead other people or take the responsibility of people and take them all forward. So a good thing would be for people to realize what their assets are, what they do better. You can do both of them together. You can learn and do a job. You can build a company and at the same time learn a lot. Both these things are possible. One is not mutually exclusive from the other. The only skill stack that I care about or I would want to have is to have curiosity, coachability, and hunger to learn. That's it. If you have these three skills, I believe you can do anything. And most of the people who succeeded have succeeded less from domain knowledge, but more for having these skills and building things which didn't exist before.
That was the perfect note for us to end this. Thank you for that. That was amazing.